Well, when I say limitations, I mean limitations for the implementation of the Agile learning model, right? Because and I don't mean to judge any model, just to acknowledge the mechanics of it, right? Like in conventional schooling, you have like expected outcomes from the start, right? And you have grading structures from a predisposed agenda to see like if kids meet this agenda, right? Not to say good or bad agenda, just an agenda. Then they will they will continue their journey as students, and if they don't meet the criteria, then they have to become relegated and marginalized, right? And I found a bunch of like really everywhere I go. I just had a conversation with teachers in Veracruz here in Mexico, and in these limiting structures, we can also find people that really care for kids, right? Like sometimes they want to do different things, but because of the structure, they can't, right? They have this like big, heavy umbrella, like weighing down the things that they dream about doing, right? So I think that the school system, I see it filled with like great hearts, expecting to transform reality for kids to make it more respectful, freer, more abundant in in joy and relevance for the kids. But sometimes these structures that expect also things from the teachers don't allow them to play with that, right? So just the predisposed agendas and what learn like that prescribes how learning looks like. I think that leaves little room for the expressions of the human heart, of the human spirit that don't look like that necessarily, right? But that we have seen over and over how becoming more aware of your relationship to yourself, to others, to the land, like that can create a lot of wealth that sometimes the conventional agendas don't see, because they have their focus on other important things about human life, right? But we have seen over and over how that doesn't not all the time lead us to have meaningful lives, right? Like we can find meaningful lives through many different paths that if we just allow for people to walk those paths, I think we could see the gift in not only X, Y, and Z about education, but also A, B, C, D, E, F, G, like all these other forms of wealth in education that we just don't see because the dominant narrative just places our attention in a very little spectrum of the wealth that occurs in education, the richness.
Yeah, wow. That's immediately I go to emotions actually, like this dominant educational paradigm actually doesn't give much room for emotions or for learning about our emotions, learning about ourselves, learning about the emotions of other people, setting boundaries and so on. So that's something else that I actually value a lot from the Agile Learning Centers. And the combination, for example, being there and seeing this community mastery board in which we share our the awarenesses that there are, but how we try to make also the link with the emotions that they trigger in me, right? And in a way we usually try to tackle things in a non-violent way and more connecting way. But emotions are crucial and are really one of those parts of ourselves that are kind of like avoided in the tradition in the conventional school system, I think.
Yeah, and I think in general, like the pyramidal collective intelligence, like where you have some like centralized authority, it doesn't allow much room for the complexity of the human heart, right? Human emotions. And while that can create flows, like efficient flows in the operative dimension, that also creates some problems along along those lines, right? Like along the lines of emotions, because if you don't have a place like a good place to feel your emotions first, right, and then to express your emotions, then those emotions become like you suppress those emotions in order to belong to this space, right? And if I suppress my emotions, then in the future I will have depression, right? Because I suppressed all these things, or I will have anxiety because I couldn't express, right? I couldn't integrate. It builds up, and now as adults we have to go to therapy and to do all these things to heal, because we couldn't have a space, a compassionate space for us to feel what we felt and express how we felt, of course, in a way that cared for others, which we do really well, I think. And I see it as the only way to have an integral like approach to education and life, to make space for the complexity of emotions, right? Otherwise we will not have a meaningful life, because emotions play a huge role in our experience, right? And if we don't know how to integrate them and how to transcend the ones that don't really serve us, and we carry them along, like we just bring them with us throughout our lives, it becomes really problematic in the long run.